What's up, guys? So the other day I was talking to one of my white belts and he made a mistake. And it's a mistake that I've made. And it's a mistake that I'm probably sure many of you have made. And it's a mistake that we're going to illustrate in this video to hopefully steer some of you guys away from it. So here's what happened. My white belt was in class the other day. I hadn't seen him in a little bit. And so I said, "Hey, bro, how you doing?" And he said, "Oh, man, I'm good. I'm healthy again." I said, healthy again. So I asked him, "What kind of injury did you have?" And here's what happened. Basically, he is new to jiu-jitsu, right, relatively, and then he started getting into lifting because thought it was a good idea. So he starts lifting a little bit and ends up liking it. So, oh, this is fun. So then he starts lifting like 5 days a week. And the combined stress of lifting and jiu-jitsu both added together on a body that's not, is not coming from an athletic background was too much, and he ended up getting what I tend to think is tendinitis in his arm from overuse in his arm. And so he had to take about 3 weeks off from both activities, lifting and jiu-jitsu. And so he was asking me, because he wants to get back into lifting, he's like, "Chewy, what do I need to do to add lifting back into the mix without destroying my body and getting injured again?" And so I'm going to share the idea that I shared with him, that I'll share with you, and hopefully this is useful to you. So here's the mistake that he made that I talked about in the beginning of the video. The mistake is you focused on the training first without, to me, what is the most important part. It's like the backbone of your training. Now, this kind of seems counterintuitive, but when I think about lifting and I think about jiu-jitsu, these are activities that are, the benefits and the gifts that you get from them are like something that you get long-term down the road, like months, years down the road. It's not a very quick thing. Neither one of them are. And so the most important part in my book, and this is something that I do anytime I add a new exercise modality, a new workout routine, a new training schedule, and even like related to my business stuff. Anytime I do something new, I get into something new, I focus on this part first. I focus on the routine. That seems counterintuitive because we're talking about training, but I focus on the routine first. Here's what happens most of the time. People get really excited about stuff, and like lifting, for instance, and they jump into it. And then they do it so hard and heavy so quickly they burn out, either physically or mentally. And then this happens in jiu-jitsu all the time. Someone comes into jiu-jitsu and they're so excited about it and they just can't help themselves and they start training really hard. And again, I call these students shooting stars because they come in, they buy all the gis, they train really hard, and they either burn out mentally from just exhaustion from training too much, or they burn out physically because their body gets injured and then they quit, right? It's unfortunate. What I would ask you to do is, if you're going to get into a new exercise modality, especially if you don't come from an athletic background, if you've already lifted it before in your life, this does not apply to you, right? But if you're going to get into a new one, this is what I told my students. Start by getting a good program together. Go find one. There's lots of them out there, right? Get a good lifting program together. And then when you go to the gym to execute this lifting program, instead of immediately slapping on the weight, going as hard as possible, begin by going a little bit lighter than what you might want. Right? I know it doesn't feed the ego, right? It doesn't feel good to lift a lightweight, but here's what we're doing during this period of time. Again, coming from an unathletic background. One, we're giving your body time to acclimate to the new stress with lighter intensity. This way you can kind of feel what it feels like to do these weights. Your body can get used to the movements. It's also a great time to work form with lighter intensity, right? You can consider this just like jiu-jitsu. What do we do in jiu-jitsu? We do moves against a passive opponent, and eventually we work up to doing them against a resisting opponent during rolling, right? That's the intensity. So you're giving yourself time to work in that lighter intensity. And then on top of that, you're also giving yourself time to get used to the lay of the gym, which maybe isn't a big deal to you, but it does increase the efficiency, where you're like, okay, there's the squat rack, there's the dumbbells. I know where everything is. I know how this routine is going to work. And what you do is you start off very light in the beginning and you just incrementally add up the weight over the course of a few weeks, right? 2 to 3 weeks. And what that's doing is, in that period of time, you're allowing yourself to get used to the rhythm of doing that particular activity at a particular time, a particular day, whatever, and getting it then meshed in with your jiu-jitsu at the same time without getting too sore or beat up from the training. Now, you're going to go into the gym and you're going to have more in your tank. You're going to feel like you have more to do, and you do. But again, we're not so worried about, again, hitting it hard yet. We're worried about getting that routine set, the backbone of the training set first. This way, when we start to add the weight up, first off, your body will be more acclimated to it and you'll already be in the rhythm of doing it all the time. It'll be much easier to maintain. And so this is what I told my student to do if he wants to add lifting back into the mix without beating himself up. Start light on the program and then work in for a couple weeks, incrementally adding the weight up, working to a solid working weight on your particular exercises, by week 3 or so. But in that period of 14 plus days, you're giving yourself time to get used to the routine itself, which again, to me, is the most important part, because anything in my life that I feel that I'm proud of or accomplished with or whatever has come off the back of a routine that has been done to the point of almost feeling like it's habitual. It's like if I don't do that thing on that day or at that time of day or whatever, it's like I feel like it's almost like I didn't wash my hands after using the restroom or eating breakfast in the morning. I know some of you guys don't eat breakfast, but I do. And so if I don't eat breakfast in the morning, something's wrong. And so that's the most important part to me, is setting that routine first and then worrying about upping the intensity later. And hopefully that'll be useful to you guys. That's what I do now. Anytime I add in some new exercise routine or anything else, I focus on that first, add everything else in last. And sort of as a quick aside, if you're coming into jiu-jitsu from like a lifting background or some other exercise modality, you want to take that same advice. Instead of coming into jiu-jitsu and trying to go like 6 days a week, 7 days a week, or whatever it is that you want to do, start by going a little bit lighter on the days, giving yourself time to rest, and even giving yourself some days where maybe you do drilling and technique and no rolling a little bit. So this way you can give your body time to acclimate to the movements, you can become familiar with everything, and then you could up the intensity later. So that's the video. Hopefully that's useful to you guys, and I'll talk to you next time.